Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today we're going deep into the world of generative AI.
Yeah, it's a pretty hot topic.
It really is, and we've got some great excerpts from a document all about conversations around generative AI.
Should be a good one.
For sure. You might think AI is just this futuristic thing.
Right.
But it's already everywhere.
It is, yeah.
Having a huge impact. And we're going to really explore how it's evolved.
Okay.
From simple tools.
Yeah.
Like, think Google Translate.
Yeah.
So these mind-blowing models like ChatGPT.
Right.
So get ready to learn how this tech works, its potential impact.
For sure.
And maybe even debunk some myths along the way.
I like it.
So busting those myths.
Yeah, exactly. So to start,
yeah.
You mentioned earlier those autocomplete suggestions on our phones.
Oh,
That's
wow.
generative AI.
That's generative AI in action.
But it goes so far beyond that.
Way and beyond.
So let's break it down.
Okay.
What do we actually mean by generative AI?
Yeah.
Because we hear AI all the time.
What sets this type of AI apart?
Right. So, we need to clarify.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence, or AI, is basically getting computers to do things that humans usually do.
Okay.
So things like solving problems, making decisions, and even, understanding language.
Okay.
And then generative AI takes that a step further.
Okay.
It doesn't just try to do those things.
Right.
It creates brand new content.
Wow.
So
instead of following instructions, it's making something new.
Yeah, like composing music, writing poetry, or even coding software.
Oh, wow.
It can create all sorts of things.
That's incredible.
From audio and code to images, text, videos.
Right.
It's super powerful.
Yeah.
It can be used for expression, problem solving,
Right.
and even enhancing our own creativity.
That's really cool. And to think that we've probably been interacting with generative AI for a while now without even realizing it.
Oh, for sure.
Like you mentioned Google Translate earlier.
Right. Google Translate launched back in 2006.
Okay.
It's a classic example.
Yeah.
It takes your words in one language and creates a translation in a different language. And then there's Siri, which came out in 2011 and has been answering our questions ever since.
So this technology has been developing for some time now.
It has.
Leading to the sophisticated models we see today.
Right.
And one that's really taken off is ChatGPT.
Oh, yeah. ChatGPT hit 100 million users in just 2 months.
2 months.
It's mind-blowing.
That is mind-blowing.
Especially when you compare it to Google Translate.
Yeah.
Which took 78 months to reach that same number.
Wow. What do you think caused it to take off so quickly?
I think people are starting to see how much potential it has.
Yeah. Especially
the latest version, GPT-4, which came out this year.
Okay.
It can do so much.
Like what?
It can outperform 90% of humans on the SAT.
90%.
I know, it's crazy.
That's amazing.
It excels in professional exams, it writes essays, it codes, it creates all kinds of content.
That is really impressive.
Imagine needing an About Me page for your website.
Okay, yeah.
GPT-4 could write one in seconds.
Really?
Just based on your hobbies and your career.
That's incredible.
It really is a game changer.
It is.
But it's not magic.
Right.
There is a logic to how it works.
Okay.
And it's all based on this concept called language modeling.
Right.
It boils down to predicting the next word in a sequence.
So like when you're texting and your phone suggests the next word.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, the early language models were pretty simple.
Right.
They basically just counted words to make these predictions.
Right.
But when neural networks came about, things got much more sophisticated.
I've heard the term neural networks.
Yeah.
But I don't fully understand how they work.
So think of a neural network, like a brain for the AI.
Okay.
It doesn't just count words.
Yeah.
It actually learns patterns and relationships within the data.
Okay.
Early models were limited in understanding the nuances of language.
Right.
And producing really creative things.
Yeah.
Neural networks changed all that.
So it's not just memorizing words, it's understanding the deeper meaning.
Exactly. It's about understanding the connections between them.
Yeah.
And to do that, we need to train the model on a massive amount of text data.
Okay, so how do you even begin to train a model as complex as ChatGPT?
Well, it starts with gathering a huge amount of data.
From where?
All sorts of places. Wikipedia, GitHub, Reddit, Quora, you name it.
Wow.
And then the model goes through this intense learning process.
Okay.
Where it's fed all of this data.
Yeah.
And it has to predict missing words and sentences.
Oh, wow.
And with each attempt, it gets better and better.
So it's learning just like a human would.
Exactly. And at the heart of this process are neural networks.
Right.
Which act like the brain processing all this data and learning how to generate language.
So ChatGPT uses a specific type of neural network called a transformer.
Yes, and this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
The transformer architecture is like a network of networks.
Okay.
It's complex, but it has revolutionized natural language processing.
So what makes the transformer architecture so special?
Well, think of it this way. Instead of processing words one by one, transformers use something called embeddings.
Embeddings.
Which are numerical representations of words that capture their meaning and their relationships.
So like translating words into a code.
Exactly. And then these embeddings are processed by a whole series of interconnected neural networks, allowing the model to understand and generate language in a much more sophisticated way.
That's really cool. So does that mean that AI taking over the world, becoming self-aware?
No.
Making its own decisions? That's all just a myth.
That's just science fiction.
Okay, good.
The reality is these models need us.
Okay.
They need our instructions, and they operate within the boundaries that we set.
So they're tools.
Exactly. Powerful tools.
Yeah.
But still just tools.
So the future of AI is more about how we use it.
Yeah. Responsibly and ethically to improve our lives.
Exactly. And to do that, we really need to understand its capabilities.
Definitely. And its limitations.
For sure. Because they are not perfect.
Right.
Remember, they are making predictions. Based on the data they were trained on. And like any prediction, there's always a chance for errors.
So it's like relying on your GPS without ever looking at a map?
Yes.
You might end up somewhere you don't want to be.
You could.
Yeah. So we need to use these models to help us. Not replace us.
Right. Augment our intelligence, not replace it.
Exactly. And speaking of understanding, let's talk about how these models gain knowledge and intelligence.
Okay.
You know, we've talked about the transformer architecture.
Right.
But what about size? Does size matter when it comes to AI?
It really does. The scale of these models makes a huge difference.
Really?
Remember that simple neural network with 99 parameters?
Yeah.
Well, GPT-4, one of the most powerful models today, has over 1 trillion parameters.
A trillion.
1 trillion.
That's a massive difference.
It is. It's kind of like the human brain.
Yeah, with its 100 trillion synapses. Exactly.
Right.
And this just shows you that the size of these models directly relates to what they can do.
It's amazing to think about the amount of power needed to train such a large model.
Right. It takes a lot of resources.
Yeah.
Training a model like GPT-4 is estimated to cost around $100 million.
$100 million.
Yep. So only a few organizations can create these really advanced systems.
So going back to scale, how do larger models handle more complex tasks compared to smaller ones?
Well, a small model can do simple things like completing sentences or translating basic phrases.
Okay.
But a larger model can do much more.
Like what?
Like composing different kinds of creative text.
Oh, wow.
Poems, code scripts, even music.
It's like the difference between a simple calculator and a powerful computer.
Exactly. Both can do calculations.
Yeah.
But the computer is much more capable.
So it's not just about size. It's about what these models are trained to do.
Exactly.
Okay.
You can't expect a general AI model to be an expert in astrophysics.
Right.
Or to diagnose you with a medical condition without specialized training.
Okay, so that's where instruction fine-tuning comes in.
Yes.
It's about teaching these models to do specific tasks.
Right. It's like giving them a specialized education.
Yeah.
Tailoring their knowledge to meet certain needs.
So if I wanted to analyze legal documents,
yes,
I'd have to fine-tune it with legal information.
Precisely. You take that general model and turn it into a powerful tool for legal analysis.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So as these models get bigger and bigger, is bigger always better, or is there a limit?
Well, that's a question that researchers are trying to figure out.
Okay.
Scaling up has led to a lot of progress, but it's not without its challenges.
Like the cost and needing more data.
Exactly, not to mention the energy it takes to train them.
Right.
We may be getting close to the limit of the data and computing power we have.
Yeah.
The future might involve finding new ways to train these models that are more efficient and sustainable.
That makes sense. And another important thing to consider is making sure that these systems are aligned with human intentions.
Absolutely. That's what we call AI alignment.
Okay.
It's about making sure AI is not just powerful, but also trustworthy and ethical.
So making sure that as AI gets smarter, it's still working with us.
Exactly.
Not against us.
And that it uses its powers for good.
It's a big responsibility.
It is. And a big part of that responsibility is figuring out how to teach these super powerful language models.
Yeah.
To act in ways that align with what we as humans want.
That makes sense. But how do we make sure that these models are working with us?
Yeah.
Not against us.
Right. So it's not just about teaching them tasks.
Right.
It's about making sure they're working within our values and our goals as humans.
It sounds like a delicate balancing act.
It is.
You know, harnessing this power, but making sure it's still beneficial.
Yeah, and one way we do this is by using what we call the HH framework. Okay. Helpful, honest, and harmless.
I like that.
Yeah, it's a set of guiding principles.
Okay, so break this down for me. What does that actually mean in practice?
Okay, so helpful means the AI should follow instructions accurately.
Yeah.
Do what we ask it to do.
Okay.
Effectively, and really respond to what the user needs.
So it's not just blindly following orders, it's really understanding the context.
Exactly. It's about understanding the intent behind those orders.
Oh, sure.
And then there's honest, which means the AI should be truthful.
Yeah.
Provide reliable information.
Okay.
Not spread misinformation.
That's huge, especially today.
It is super important.
With all the misinformation out there.
Yeah. And then finally, harmless means the AI should operate safely.
Okay.
Ethically.
Yeah.
And avoid any outputs that might be biased, toxic, or harmful.
So it sounds like this HHH framework is really about making sure that these AI systems act responsibly.
Exactly.
You know, using their abilities for good.
Yes.
Not for bad.
We want them to be contributing members of society.
I like that. So how do we actually put these principles into practice?
Right. So that's where human input is super important.
Okay.
We use a method called reinforcement learning from human feedback.
Okay.
Which basically means instead of just training the model on set examples,
yeah,
we have humans evaluate and rank the model's responses.
So we're basically training the model to align with human expectations.
Exactly like having a teacher guide the AI.
Yeah.
So let's say you ask the model a question, like what causes the seasons to change?
Right.
It might come up with a few different answers.
Okay.
And then human evaluators come in and they rank those responses based on things like accuracy, clarity,
gotcha,
and relevance.
So the model learns to give outputs that not only are accurate,
yes,
but also line up with our value communication styles.
It's all about building trust.
It seems like a really complex process.
It is.
And probably takes a lot of resources.
It does. But even with all of that, it's important to remember that these AI models are still under development.
Right. They're not perfect.
Exactly. They can still make mistakes.
What are some of the common limitations we see?
Well, one issue is staying up to date with factual information.
Right.
They sometimes struggle with getting the latest news.
Right.
So that can lead to inaccuracies.
Gotcha.
And another challenge is being consistent when dealing with sensitive topics.
Okay.
And of course, even with all this training, they can still make errors just like we do.
So we can't just assume that they're always right.
No.
We need to be careful.
Yes, use our judgment.
Especially with important information.
Right. It's kind of like that saying, measure twice, cut once.
Yeah, I like that.
You want to make sure things are right.
Exactly. Do you have any real-world examples of these limitations in action?
Yeah. So, for instance, imagine a live demo.
Okay.
And someone asks a simple question like, is the UK a monarchy?
Right.
The model might give this long, rambling, uncertain response.
Oh, wow.
Maybe even referencing outdated information.
So it might get the basic fact right, but then mess up some details.
Exactly like mentioning a previous monarch.
Yeah, that's a pretty big mistake.
It is, and it just goes to show that these models are still learning.
Right. They're not perfect.
Yeah, we can't trust everything they say.
It's a reminder that this technology is still in its early stages.
It is.
And we need to understand these limitations as we use these models more and more.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about factual tasks and limitations.
Yeah.
But what about creativity? Can AI be creative?
That's where it gets really interesting. AI models like ChatGPT can do some pretty amazing things when it comes to creativity.
Like what?
Well, they can write poems.
Really?
Compose music.
Yeah.
And even try to be funny.
AI trying to be funny, that sounds...
It is.
Kind of scary.
Yeah, it's not always successful.
Right.
Sometimes their explanations of the jokes can feel a bit forced, like they're trying too hard to analyze the humor.
Overthinking it.
Exactly, but the fact that they can even attempt humor shows how far they've come.
Do you have an example of an AI-generated joke?
Sure, how about this one? Why did the computer keep freezing?
Oh,
because it left its windows open.
Okay, that's actually pretty good.
It is, right?
It plays on the double meaning of freezing and computer windows.
Exactly.
So it understands wordplay.
Yeah.
And humor.
It's pretty impressive.
It is. It really shows how much potential these models have for learning and adapting.
Right. They can work with different forms of language and expression.
It's almost like they're tapping into this artificial creativity.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
We may not fully understand how they do it,
right,
but they're capable of some really surprising and engaging results.
And that brings us to a really important part of this conversation.
Yes.
The impact of AI on society.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just about the technology itself.
Right.
It's about how it's being used.
Exactly, and what the consequences could be.
And there are some concerns.
Oh, yeah.
About widespread AI adoption.
There are.
We talked about the environmental impact earlier.
Yeah.
But what about jobs?
Right. A lot of people are worried about AI taking over jobs.
Yeah, is that fear realistic?
Well, it's not that straightforward.
Okay.
While some jobs will definitely be automated,
yeah,
AI will also create new opportunities.
Really?
Yeah, and new jobs.
That we can't even imagine yet.
Exactly. It's kind of like what happened with the internet.
Yeah.
No one predicted social media managers or e-commerce specialists.
That's true.
Right? So I think we'll see a similar trend with AI.
Okay.
It'll create new industries and new job roles that require different skills.
So it's not about AI versus humans.
Yeah.
It's about adaptation.
Exactly. It's about being prepared.
And being open to new possibilities.
Yes, we need to focus on upskilling and retraining.
So instead of fearing AI, we should see it as an opportunity.
I think so.
To evolve the workforce.
Yeah, and create new possibilities.
Exactly. And another concern I've heard is about AI being used to create and spread misinformation.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah, we already have issues with fake news and manipulated media. And AI could make it even worse.
It could. With AI, it's possible to create very convincing fake content.
Really?
Deepfakes.
Yeah.
AI-generated text that sounds just like a human wrote it.
That's scary.
It is.
Do you have any examples of how this is happening?
Yeah, so there was this AI-generated song that went viral online.
Okay.
It sounded exactly like Drake and The Weeknd collaborated.
And people thought it was real.
They did. Millions of people were fooled.
Wow.
It just shows you how powerful AI is.
It really does.
It can create things that are indistinguishable from what humans make.
And that's both impressive and terrifying.
It is. It's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah. AI has this incredible potential for good.
Yes.
But it can also be used for harm.
Absolutely. So we need to be aware of these potential problems.
Yeah.
And develop ways to deal with them.
So how do we do that?
Well, we need to be proactive about fighting AI-generated misinformation.
Okay.
Through things like education,
yeah.
media literacy, and developing technology that can detect these fakes.
So it's a constant battle.
It is. We have to stay ahead of the curve.
As AI gets better,
yeah,
so do the fakers.
Exactly. But it's a challenge we need to face head on.
For sure.
We need to invest in research, in education,
yeah,
and in setting ethical guidelines for how AI is developed.
So that it's used responsibly.
Exactly. And we need to have open and honest conversations about the potential consequences, both good and bad.
It's been a really insightful conversation.
It has.
And I feel like we've just scratched the surface.
We have. This is a vast topic that's constantly changing.
It is.
What we know today might be different tomorrow.
Right.
That's why it's important to stay informed, stay engaged, and be a part of these discussions about the future of AI.
We're all stakeholders in this.
We are.
We have a responsibility to be informed, to be engaged.
Yeah.
And to really shape the future of this technology.
Absolutely. But before we get too far into the future, I want to go back to something we mentioned earlier about the limitations of current AI models.
Yeah.
You talked about that example where a rival AI model made a big mistake.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so in this case, the AI was asked to name the researchers who took the first ever picture of an exoplanet.
Right, and it got it wrong.
It did.
It gave credit to the wrong team.
And this was shared online.
It was.
And it caused problems for the company.
It did. They faced financial repercussions.
Wow, so the model got its facts wrong.
Yeah.
And it hurt the company.
It did.
It's a pretty significant mistake.
It was, and it reminds us that even these advanced AI systems can make errors.
Yeah.
We need to be careful.
We can't just blindly trust what they tell us.
Especially when it comes to sensitive information.
So AI, for all its power, is still just a technology based on data.
And algorithms.
It can process things.
Right.
Make predictions.
Yes.
But it doesn't have the same understanding or critical thinking.
As a human.
So it's about finding that balance between human and artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Using AI's power.
Yes.
But keeping humans in control.
It's about working together.
And that's even more important as we look at some of the broader concerns around AI.
It is. Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because a lot of people compare AI to other powerful technologies like nuclear energy.
Okay.
And it makes sense, both AI and nuclear energy have the potential for huge benefits.
Yeah.
But also huge risks.
Right.
Think about it. Nuclear energy, if it's harnessed correctly, it can be this amazing source of clean energy.
Yeah.
But if it's not handled properly,
right.
the consequences can be devastating.
Like Chernobyl.
Exactly. A prime example of what can go wrong.
Yeah.
And it's similar with AI. If we develop it and use it ethically,
Right.
it can revolutionize so many industries,
Yeah.
improve our lives, and even help us solve some of the world's biggest problems.
But if it's misused...
Right, then the consequences could be really serious.
Like what?
Well, think about things like job displacement, the spread of misinformation, even the erosion of privacy and individual freedom.
So it really is a double-edged sword.
It is.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Absolutely. We're at a point where we need to think carefully about the implications of this technology and make sure we're using it for good.
And we can learn from how we've dealt with other powerful technologies in the past.
Those lessons can help us navigate the development and deployment of AI.
Yeah.
We need to find that balance.
Right.
Encourage innovation, but also mitigate the risks.
Finding that sweet spot.
Exactly, where we can benefit from AI's power,
right,
but also protect ourselves from potential harm.
And speaking of potential harm, we can't forget about the environmental impact of training these huge AI models.
Right. We talked about the carbon footprint earlier.
Are there any solutions being explored to address that?
Researchers are working on more efficient training methods that use looks energy.
That's great.
And there's also a lot of interest in new hardware and computing architectures that are more sustainable.
So it's not just about making these models bigger and more powerful.
No, it's about being smarter.
Right.
About how we design and train these systems.
Finding the right tool for the job.
Right, exactly.
Not just assuming bigger is always better.
Right. It's about making choices that align with our values.
Yeah.
And our goals for a sustainable future.
And when we talk about values,
yeah,
one of the big questions we need to ask ourselves is, what role do we want AI to play in our lives?
That's the key question. Do we want AI to empower us?
Right.
Or do we want it to control us?
That's a really important question.
It gets to the core of the ethical considerations around AI.
Yeah.
We need to define our relationship with this technology and make sure it aligns with our values and what we want as humans.
And this is a conversation that we need to be having at all levels.
Yes, as individuals, as a society, and as a global community.
The choices we make now will have a huge impact.
They'll shape the future of AI and its impact on humanity for generations to come.
It's a call to action for all of us.
It is. We need to be informed, engaged, and proactive in shaping the future of AI.
We can't just sit back and watch.
No, we need to participate in the conversation.
Right.
And make sure our voices are heard.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
Thank you for walking us through the world of generative AI.
You're welcome.
From its early days to its amazing potential.
I hope this has sparked your curiosity.
It definitely has.
And encouraged you to keep learning about this incredible technology.
It's clear that AI is here to stay.
It is.
And it's up to us to shape its future.
For the benefit of all humanity.
And before we go,
yeah,
you said you had a final thought.
I do a question for everyone to think about.
Okay, all right.
As we consider the potential risks of AI.
Yeah.
Think about this. What's a bigger threat to humanity, AI, or climate change?
That's a tough one.
It is, right?
They both have the potential to be catastrophic if we don't address them.
Exactly. It's a complex question.
Yeah. With no easy answer.
But it makes you think.
It does. It highlights how important it is to think critically.
Yeah.
And to look at the big picture when it comes to AI.
We need to see how all these global challenges are connected.
Yes. And work towards solutions that address them in a way that makes sense.
In a way that's sustainable.
Absolutely.
It's a powerful reminder that we have the power to shape the future.
The choices we make today will determine the course of both AI and our planet.
Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us on this deep dive into the world of generative AI.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you learned something new.
Yes.
Gained a new perspective.
And maybe even feel inspired to get involved in shaping the future of this incredible technology.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking those tough questions.